Pound for pound, chapter for chapter, verse for verse, Ruth is one of the best books in all of the Bible. It's about 4 chapters long. It's full of meaning and significance for us today. I encourage you to go read it. So much of the Bible is about how humans create disconnect between one another. And we see the truth of this disconnect today just as much as the biblical authors did back in their day. The Bible is also about how you and I might go about creating meaningful connections with one another. Ruth reveals both of these in profound ways, which is why I think the book is so important. Ruth starts off with a husband and a wife and their 2 sons. They live in Bethlehem. In Bethlehem during this time is this great famine. And so this couple decides that they will move to another country called Moab. So they move to Moab, and there their 2 sons find Moabite wives named Orpah and Ruth. Soon, Naomi, the wife, her husband dies, and her 2 sons die as well. Naomi reflects upon this a little later on in the book and changes her name to Mara. Mara, which means in Hebrew means bitter. Call me bitter, she says. Naomi is no longer my name. I am bitter. So she's going through a really rough time. Well, pretty soon she hears that the famine in Bethlehem is over, and so she wants to go back to her people. Maybe there's some hope there for her. So she's on her way back, and her 2 daughters-in-law, they come with her. Well, Naomi says, don't come with me. Go back. Go back to your mother's house. Go back to your own people. Go back to your gods. I have nothing for you. I can't give you any more children. I'm barren. And in this culture, that means I'm useless. I have nothing to provide you. All that I will be for you is a burden. Well, it turns out that after some discussion, Orpah goes back, but Ruth doesn't. Ruth sticks with Naomi. She basically says, I'm in this with you through thick and thin. I will not leave you. She says, where you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. Your people will be my people. She refuses to let Naomi go on her own. Even though Naomi is going through a hard time, even though Naomi is bitter, Ruth sticks it out with Naomi. This is faithfulness. I think this is part of the answer that the book of Ruth is giving. Faithfulness to one another. So much of faithfulness we assume is with God. But it's not just about our faithfulness to God, it's our faithfulness to one another here on earth. This practical faithfulness, sticking it through no matter what. This is what Ruth does with Naomi. We're in it together. A little later on, we meet a man named Boaz. Boaz is a relative of Elimelech, Naomi's deceased husband. Naomi and Ruth are trying to find a way in which they can survive. Boaz is a rich, prominent man. He has a field where he has workers who glean from the field to get food. So Naomi says to Ruth, go to the field and glean food and bring it back, and we'll eat together. So she goes to the field, and it turns out that Boaz ends up noticing Ruth. And he says, Ruth, I've heard about what you've done with your mother-in-law. Come eat with us. Come have dinner with us. Let's celebrate your life together. So they end up going, and Ruth says, Why have you looked upon me with so much favor? I'm a foreigner. I'm not like one of you. And Boaz says, it doesn't matter. What matters to me is that you have shown this great faithfulness to your mother-in-law. You are just like us. This is what we are meant to be. It doesn't matter if you're a foreigner. This is who we are meant to be. So they end up having dinner together. Ruth goes back to Naomi and says, had dinner, it was great. So Naomi produces this plan in which maybe Boaz and Naomi maybe Boaz and Ruth will get married. So she tells Ruth to go back to Boaz's place. And after Boaz has had a little bit to drink during the night, after he's had something to eat, go and lay down with Boaz and uncover his feet. In Hebrew, feet is a euphemism for genitals. So there's some sexual activity that's going on here. Now, a lot of people, when we get to this point in the story, are kind of surprised that this is in the Bible. A lot of members in my youth group will ask, well, doesn't the Bible say we shouldn't have sex before marriage? There's nothing in the Bible that says thou shalt not have sex before marriage. But what the Bible does assume is that if you have sex before marriage, that you are going to get married. That you are going to take responsibility for the actions that you have made. That you are going to care for this other person, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. You will care for this person. This is what this story, I think, is all about. This faithfulness to one another. So there's some kind of sexual activity that's going on. Boaz realizes that this is happening, and Ruth says, cover me up. Cover me up with your sheet. And what she's asking here is for Boaz to take care of her, to take responsibility for her, to provide for her. And Boaz says, of course I am going to do this. There's no such thing as just sex. It doesn't exist. This is a myth that some probably guy created in order to basically do whatever he wanted. The Bible is saying no, that doesn't exist. Sex is about taking responsibility, being faithful to one another. And if you don't, then sex becomes just another way of how we create disconnect with one another. So I think that is what Ruth is telling us about faithfulness, sexual faithfulness. Interestingly enough, Ruth, a Moabite, ends up becoming an ancestor to David. We see this in the last chapter. And also an ancestor to Jesus. A lot of the Bible says that foreigners are completely other. Well, here we have another story where a foreigner, a Moabite, is not completely other. It's one of us. So these are the ways that I see Ruth trying to bring connections to one another as opposed to disconnect. There's so much more in the story that I think is important, but we'll stick with those. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know. Bye.